Hey everyone, it's Jean-A from The Last Stitch, also author of the book Sewing Jeans. And in today's video we're going to talk about my top tips if you are a beginner making your own first pair of jeans, or perhaps you made a pair of jeans and had some struggles and you want to really get that to the next level. Then watch this video where I will share my top beginner tips for sewing jeans. Now, let's start with the fabric. It's crucial to get this right. Unfortunately, a lot of denim that is available in regular fabric stores has tendency to be a bit on the light side. And if you want to get that really nice professional looking pair of jeans, you definitely need to go a slightly heavier fabric, at least 11 to 12 ounces, up to 14 ounces. Now, a word of warning, you can't go too heavy when you're using a regular home sewing machine, because it just won't be able to penetrate all these layers if you're using really thick denim. But at least try to not go below 10 ounces to make sure that you get that really nice shape of the jeans. And speaking of fabric, you should also consider how much stretch you want in the fabric. For instance, if you're doing classic denim inspired by those iconic Levi's jeans, for instance, you should not use a stretch fabric. Instead, opt for 100% cotton, because then you will get that nice stability without having it alter the hand of the fabric. Because if you add lycra to it, it just won't just add stretch, it also changes the hand of the fabric. It becomes a little more stiffer in a way, which seems counterintuitive because it's stretchy, but it removes some of the softness of the denim. And also lycra tends to break down faster than the cotton fabric, so it means that the stretch might, loses its stretch after some washes, which if you want to get that classic denim that just get better with washing and washing and washing, it's usually better to opt for a fabric that doesn't have lycra or spandex. On the other hand, if you're doing a pair of straight legs jeans that are at least slightly fitted, for comfort, it's much nicer to have a little bit of stretch in it. So for instance, I recommend that you look for denim fabrics that only has about 1 to 2% lycra, because then you can preserve some of that nice hand of traditional denim, but you still have a little bit of stretch that will accommodate your movement and, regarding how large your tummy is that day. That's why I really like personally to use denim fabric that has just that tiny amount of lycra addition. Now, of course, if you're doing skinny jeans, you definitely can go higher on the lycra content. But then again, unless you're doing like jeans leggings, don't go crazy with the stretch, because it just changes the hand of the fabric. It just doesn't feel like denim anymore. So to me, I would say the sweet spot is around 3 to 4% of lycra, definitely no more than 5. I would say that even 5, that's definitely more if you're doing like super stretchy jeans or like leggings type of jeans, then you can definitely use that amount of lycra. But if not, I do recommend that you stick to as little lycra as possible, just to get that perfect amount of stretch. Another thing to consider definitely is to pre-wash the fabric, because denim does shrink and it does have a tendency to leave a lot of color. So if you're sitting on a white sofa and haven't pre-washed the denim, there's a big risk that you will get some blue coloring on that white sofa. So unless you really like that raw denim look, I personally recommend that you pre-wash the fabric. And if you're not pre-washing the fabric, definitely be aware that the jeans will shrink lengthwise, maybe 5 to 10%. So you could of course accommodate that by altering the pattern and adding a bit more length when you're hemming. But for the most part, I do recommend pre-washing the fabric. And by the way, when you're sewing a pair of jeans, you're actually using 2 kinds of fabric. So let's talk a little bit about the pocket lining on the front pockets, because that's also really important to make a good considered choice. So I have 2 suggestions for you. Definitely use a fabric that has both cotton and poly, because the additional polyester, that will make the fabric more durable and less prone to wrinkles when you're washing it. So that's my number 1 tip. I love to use either cotton poly twill, which is a little bit thicker fabric, or a cotton poly poplin. And speaking of cotton poly poplin, I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus tip here. So what I've done sometimes is to reuse old shirts, because they have this beautiful durable cotton poplin fabric. And as you can see, I've also lined the waistband on these jeans using the same type of fabric. And because these shirting, if you get good quality one, it's actually super durable, much better than a lot of pocket lining in my experience. So if you want to have that, if you have an old shirt that you're not wearing, or if you manage to find some nice one in a second-hand shop, you can try that as well if you're not able to locate some nice poplin fabric. Now let's talk about the sewing order, which is crucial that you get right. And it's not the same as when you do a regular pair of pants following that type of sewing instruction that you will find, especially in older sewing books. Instead, this is the sewing sequence that I recommend for best result, and it's also the one that is most common in the garment industry. So, what I start with is the front pockets, because the idea here is that you should try to do as much as possible detail work before you start sewing pieces together. So I always start with the front pockets before I sew any type of seams. And once I've done both front pockets, then I do what is a lot of people find the hardest part on attaching a pair of jeans, and that is to sew the zipper. So you do that when you have both front pieces, you do that on the flat. So I'm going to show you an illustration here so you can see it better. Now you should always insert a jean zipper on the flat. I actually prefer this method for dressier pants as well. It just makes things so much easier. And if you feel intimidated about making a pair of jeans zippers, then I do recommend you check out my video tutorial where I show step-by-step instructions. And of course you will also find these instructions in my book Sewing Jeans, both for a regular zip fly and a button fly. And then let's go to the back, where I like to add the yoke on the back piece before I add the front pockets, just to get that proportion and balance right. So you sew the yoke, and once you've done all that, then it's time to sew the crotch seam. And when you've done that, you sew the back pockets. And once you've sewn the front and the back crotch, you still have, so the back pieces are joined together and the front pieces are joined together. And then you join everything together. First you sew the inseam. So you start at the hem of one leg, and then you sew all the way up to the other side of the hem, so the other leg, right? Outer seams, so you sew them together like this, from upside down all the way to the leg. You press the seam allowance open if you like that look. So that's my tip when you're sewing jeans. Then you only have the waistband and the belt loops left, so you add that, and then your jeans are done. I hope that makes sense. You can definitely go back and check the diagram that I showed previously in this video to make sure that you get that sewing order right. And again, of course, I'll explain all this in my book Sewing Jeans as well. Now, it's also really important that you use good quality needles. I'm a big fan of the Schmetz brand. They have denim needles in a large range of sizes. The heavier the denim, the larger the needle. And also Oregon, another great quality brand. It's something that I recommend. And also my super tip hand now. I think I'm going to find this, yes. Topstitching needles. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Topstitching. Now, of course, you can use regular denim needles as well. And the great thing about the Topstitching needle, or two actually, it has a larger hole, so it's very easy to get that thread inside the needle opening if you're using a really heavy thread. And secondly, they say at least, it's designed that the needles are shaped to create really beautiful top stitching. I just love these, and I actually always switch to the top stitch needle. Now, I'm sure many of you will say that you get just as nice result with your regular denim needles, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the top stitching needle, as you can tell. And speaking of top stitching, another common thing that you might run into, and definitely something I made the mistake of when I started making my own denim, is to use thick thread in the bobbin as well. Don't do that. Instead, use regular sewing machine thread in the bobbin and then top stitching thread in the needle. And luckily, a lot of brands actually comes with matching colors. So for instance, I'm holding the Gûtermann thread now in my hands, and they have a regular sewing thread and you get really nice result. You don't have to fiddle with the tension. Now, of course, when you're using thick thread in the needle and light thread in the bobbin, of course, be aware that you might alter the tension. So you usually have to crank up the needle tension quite a bit, so up to 8 or 9 or 10 to get that perfect balanced top stitching. So that's another tip when it comes to top stitching. Another problem that you might run into when it comes to top stitching is the fact you're going to go over really bumpy areas, you know, up and down, and that's where the sewing machine will have some trouble feeding over it. Might skip stitches, but then you're going to try one of these. It's called a Hump-Jumper or a Jean-A-Ma-Jig, and that levels the presser foot. So for instance, when you're stitching over belt loops, you get the presser foot to lie flat, and you stitch over it and just remove it when the presser foot is flat, and then you put it on the other side. So if you're top stitching on the crotch area, belt loops, as I mentioned previously, there are some other areas as well, like the yoke, then if you use this, I can guarantee you, you will get a much nicer result. And these are so cheap. Now I have another super tip, which is to use a press template. And if you watch my video how to sew back pockets on jeans, you have already seen this press template. This is made of firm paper, like heavier paper. And to get that razor sharp back pockets with all this shaping, you create this template, which is just the pocket after the seam allowance has been removed, the finished pocket, right? And then just press the seam allowance around this edge. And this is absolutely 100% magic. You have to trust me. I just love it. And by the way, if you download my free jeans pattern toolkit, you get lots of press templates for different types of size of pockets, and of course templates for sewing the zipper as well. So lots of goodies are awaiting you if you download this free pattern toolkit that I've made. Now I know I just barely scratched the surface when I share these tips, but I hope that you still found them useful. And as I said, I have lots of resources here on YouTube on how to sew your own jeans, on my blog, thelaststitch.com, of course in my book, Sewing Jeans, which is available both in English, in French and in German. So depending on your language, you can actually get access to my book. So I hope that these quick tips inspired you to give a go and make your first pair of jeans, or perhaps give them another go if the first one didn't turn out quite as well as you hoped. Trust me, with practice and using the right method, sewing jeans aren't that difficult, honestly. Trust me, I know, because I've learned everything the hard way. And I don't find jeans being that much of a struggle anymore. And honestly, I'm not the best technician. I'm just like always open to try out new things. Thank you so much for watching. Stitch safe, and I talk to you soon. Bye bye!